Action movies can be thrilling, explosive, and sometimes completely ridiculous. Today we're counting down the 10 dumbest action movies ever made. Films so absurd they make you question how they even got greenlit. Buckle up because this list is a wild ride. Number 10. Justice League. The DCEU films were largely divisive and controversial from the beginning, but at the very least they stayed consistent in the beginning entries through the vision and goals of Zack Snyder's signature style. However, following a personal emergency causing Snyder to bow out of his massive, sprawling blockbuster Justice League, Warner Bros. Called upon Joss Whedon to pick up and finish the project in his own vision. While Whedon had proven himself capable in the past, the repeating of tired concepts and sloppy mismanagement of the DCEU transformed the film into a disaster from beginning to end. While it's difficult to see exactly which of the film's plot-related issues were caused by either Snyder or Whedon, at the end of the day, they result in an unengaging superhero film with minimal tension and even worse pacing. Whedon's attempts at quirky quip-based humor proved to dumb down and diminish the entire experience, making a mockery of the characters and world that Snyder had envisioned with previous entries. The visuals also took a major hit during the reshoot process, most notably in the amateur attempts to remove Henry Cavill's mustache with an ineffective deepfake. Number 9. Cruise Control. The original Speed was already an action film not particularly known for its intelligent concepts, yet it found major success and acclaim thanks to the striking execution that makes its wild concept feel high stakes and engaging. By contrast, Speed 2, Cruise Control's lack of effective execution makes its moronic premise stick out that much more, made worse by just how much of a sleazy repeat of the original film it is. Instead of a high-speed bus that cannot be stopped, Speed 2 attempts to up the ante by having its characters maintain control of a high-speed cruise liner. On a fundamental level, it's easy to see why translating the concept of an unstoppable bus isn't as engaging as an unstoppable boat, as there aren't nearly as many obstacles out on the water as on the road. The film's moronic attempts at upping the ante only proved to cut back and reduce the excitement, diminishing all the tension and creating a largely underwhelming and dull experience. The film proved to be so dumb that even Keanu Reeves refused to return for the sequel. Number 8. Red One action holiday movies have had a surprisingly long and varied history, ranging from all-time classics like Die Hard to recent hits like Violent Night. However, there is a fine line required in balancing the tone and style of action filmmaking with Christmas aesthetics that can quickly go off the rails and become impossible to take seriously if done poorly. This is most notably seen with Red One, which attempts to be the Christmas movie equivalent of an action comedy superhero movie with a budget skyrocketing into the hundreds of millions of dollars. It quickly becomes apparent that treating mythological Yuletide characters like Krampus and Gryla, the Christmas witch, as massive world-ending threats is a recipe for chaotic nonsense. Even when Red One is attempting to be funny and lighthearted, its half-baked, quip-reliant comedy feels severely out of date and repetitive of decades-old Marvel movies. By the time the main characters are fighting evil snowmen on the beach, the film has completely lost any semblance of stakes or weight to its storytelling. Number 7. The Last Night. Nearly all of Michael Bay's live-action Transformers films delve into the territory of especially moronic action filmmaking, prioritizing bright spectacle and visual effects over anything remotely close to an engaging story or characters. While several of the previous entries could at the very least be considered passable despite their brainless execution, Transformers: The Last Night proves to be so dumb that its flaws are inexcusable, even to the most die-hard of fans. The Last Night makes many idiotic decisions, both in terms of storytelling and its filmmaking, that come together to create one of the most baffling and painful blockbuster experiences of recent memory. The film's story actively rewrites and retcons the previous entries, with strange and confusing inclusions, such as Transformers having been on Earth for centuries, including a close friendship with the wizard Merlin and assassinating Hitler. Even more moronic is the film's constantly changing aspect ratio due to being filmed on 3 different types of cameras, makes the entire film feel amateur and shoddily put together. Number 6. Gymkata. Contrary to what is expected, an action film completely lacking in intelligent storytelling or filmmaking does not necessarily mean that it is completely unwatchable or lacking in entertainment value. There are a select few films that, despite the odds, manage to find massive success, not in spite of their stupidity, but directly caused by the chaotic, nonsensical mess of their concept and execution. Gymkata proves to be one such case, being a glorious display of 80s action nonsense that quickly garnered a cult status due to just how ridiculous and idiotic the film is in its entirety. The film attempts to combine a wild geopolitical action thriller premise with the artistry and choreographed talents of top-level gymnastics, quickly becoming one of the most iconic gymnastics movies in the process. The film features real-life Olympic gymnast Kurt Thomas playing a man sent to a fictional country in order to compete in a deadly death game to help the US government secure a pivotal missile base. The contrasting style of over-the-top geopolitical tension with Thomas defeating bad guys with well-placed pommel horses and high bars makes for true mindless gold. Number 5. Special Ops. Few actors are as infamously tied to their high number of low-effort, cookie-cutter action films as Steven Seagal, with his filmography as a whole growing dumber and dumber with each passing year. One of the actor's most egregious cinematic outings is Sniper: Special Ops, a by-the-numbers war film that truly maximizes the extent of Seagal's fall from grace as a former action icon of the 80s and 90s. The film sees Seagal as an expert sniper leading a military team sent to a remote Afghan village to extract an American congressman being held captive by the Taliban, even without taking into consideration the completely unbelievable concept that the film centers itself around Sniper. Special Ops seemingly goes out of its way to misconstrue and minimize how much Seagal is in the film. Even Seagal himself seems actively disinterested throughout the majority of the film, with his character spending almost the entirety of his scenes sitting down, even when everyone is standing around number 4 Moonfall disaster movies. More than any other subgenre of action film, have much more lenience when it comes to idiotic and ridiculous plots, as most audiences are simply looking for top-notch effects and massive destruction out of these films. This makes cases like Moonfall that much more interesting, as the premise manages to be so idiotic and brainless that it surpasses the inherent lenience of the subgenre and becomes a mockery of the subgenre's stupidity as a whole. It would already be dumb enough if the film followed its baseline premise of the moon falling out of orbit and crashing into Earth, causing untold destruction and mayhem. However, as the film delves into the details and specifics of how and why the moon crashed into Earth, the film enters a new realm of idiotic storytelling that is unparalleled in its execution. The film creates a strange mythos involving the human race being aliens from millions of years ago, the moon being a man-made guardian protecting Earth from an evil AI, and said AI taking control of the moon and forcing it to crash. As it delves deeper and deeper into its extensive lore and implications, one can actively feel themselves getting dumber and dumber by the second. Number 3, Samurai Cop. Attempting to combine the sleek, precise legacy and resonance of samurai films with the charm and wit of an action buddy comedy, Samurai Cop has become infamous as one of the 90s dumbest action movies. The film sees Japanese organized crime having integrated and embedded itself within LA culture, leaving the police to be completely outmatched and unable to face the deadly Yakuza. They find that their only option is to turn to the help of legendary samurai Joe Marshall, who is sent on a mission to eradicate the mob until they're completely gone, from LA Samurai Cop is the type of ludicrous action movie that is entirely transparent and open about its own stupidity from the title, creating a great so bad it's good experience that is elevated by its lack of cohesion and intelligence. The film has next to no respect and knowledge of samurais and Japanese culture, making its reliance and attempts to tap into the iconography all the more hilarious and dim-witted. Number 2, iBoy. Easily one of the most idiotic and outright worst Netflix original films out there, iBoy's attempts at creating a striking and effective sci-fi thriller are completely undone by its laughably bad premise combined with shockingly unearned plot threads. The film follows young teen Tom, who, after a run-in with a gang member, ends up miraculously surviving being shot, yet has fragments of his smartphone lodged and stuck in his head. Tom soon learns that he can tap into the technology stuck in his brain, connecting to the internet and having control over various devices around him. The lunacy and outright dumbness of a boy getting superpowers after getting cell phone pieces stuck in his head cannot be understated, yet iBoy makes this laughably bad premise all the worse by playing it completely straight with no signs of comedy. The majority of the film can be treated as a laughably bad and unaware sci-fi thriller with a comically inept premise. However, the film quickly transforms into an experience of malice and vile hatred when it introduces various disgusting sequences, like one of its main characters being a victim of rape, serious issues that this goofy cell phone premise does not earn. Number 1, Titanic Ulysses. James Cameron's Titanic is arguably one of the most important and recognizable cinematic achievements of all time, being one of the highest grossing films of all time and dominating widespread culture for years to come. It would only make sense that various other films would attempt to recapture the energy and magic of Cameron's masterpiece to widely varying degrees of success and originality. However, one of the most moronic and outwardly ridiculous of these rip-off films has to be Titanic 2, an unofficial sequel that not only repeats the plot of Titanic, but turns it into an action thriller, as if the concept of an unlicensed action movie sequel to an acclaimed romance film wasn't moronic enough. Titanic 2's plot and attempts to justify itself manage to be equally dumb as its own existence. The film doesn't follow the iconic Titanic of the 20th century, but instead a pair of luxury liners set to journey the same voyage as the original ship for its 100th anniversary. Just like the original, this pair of ships ends up facing disaster on the voyage, this time in the form of a tsunami pushing the iceberg in the path of the ships. Titanic 2 is one of few films where, no matter what the plot was, the film was always going to be outwardly idiotic, as the very essence and creation of the film is dumb enough in itself. And there you have it, the 10 dumbest action movies of all time. Did we miss any? Let us know in the comments which action film left you shaking your head in disbelief. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more entertaining movie rankings. See you in the next one.